Welcome back. You're watching Game Changers. Now we're going to be looking at what's in it for Kenya's tech space in 2020 in this second segment. And now we see that Kenya was ranked the second leading innovation hub in sub-Saharan Africa by the World Intellectual Property Organization in its Global Innovation Index 2019 report. Now it's quite an achievement that leaves a lot to be desired, but how best can we maximize on the opportunities and what lies ahead these years for Kenya's tech space? Well, to help us understand what opportunities we should be looking out for and tapping into, I'm joined by Mr. Ali Hussein, CEO and co-founder Kipochi. Welcome to Game Changers, Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Tabitha.
Okay,
it's a pleasure to be back here.
Karibu sana. So maybe we can begin by understanding that, with the understanding that Kipochi is a digital financial services ecosystem. Maybe let's understand from the Sub-Saharan Africa report, the report that you have had on Kenya's tech space. What are you doing to improve the tech businesses in the Sub-Saharan Africa?
So, Tabitha, for me, I think it's not really about improving the tech businesses. Mm-hmm. I think it's about improving the whole business ecosystem by enabling and helping businesses across Africa to better use technology. So that means from startups in the technology space, but also from established players. From a financial services space where sort of I work in the tech space. I don't know whether you read the Business Daily a few days ago. I said SACCOs in this country are saved 766 billion shillings.
For the tech industry?
No, savings in the TACO space, in the SACCO space, savings. So that's a lot of money. But if you look at the SACCO space, technology is still in its infancy. I'm not saying they're not using it. I'm saying it's in infancy. We can do a lot more, in that space. So from that perspective, even the tech companies, the startups that are coming on board, that's a huge opportunity. And I think from a SACCO, in Kenya we call them SACCOs, but across Africa you have the same sort of, SACCO microfinance institutions that really require what I call digital transformation. And this is a huge opportunity, for young tech entrepreneurs that are coming on board. So what are we doing? I mean, I myself run, a technology startup, Kipochi, that focuses on building and enabling this sector. Technology need not be expensive. Need not break the bank, no pun intended. But what should really happen is we should enable the space to use technology at a minimal cost. Empower them to engage with their customers where their customers engage, on the mobile phone. Some statistics are very are important to mention here. Some of the big banks like Equity Bank and KCB now, like Equity Bank, I think 97% of all their transactions are on mobile phone. But if you come to the microfinance sector, that is not the case. But that's where they should play. That's where they should play. That's where they should mobilize deposits. That's where they should be lending. That's where they should be checking out their customer information. That's where they should be engaging their customers. But beyond M-Pesa, beyond the Lipa na M-Pesa bill sending, there isn't much that has happened. And I think that's where the sweet spot is. And that's where Kipochi is starting to address that conversation.
Okay, great. So maybe now we can look what happened or transpired in the year 2019. What are some of the milestones that maybe we can say we have achieved so far?
Well, a few weeks ago there was this there was this stories going on on WhatsApp. You know, this company has closed, this hotel has closed. I don't know whether you saw those.
Yeah, I did.
Clearly, the investors in the tech space didn't get the memo because investors pumped in more than $500 million into the tech space in Kenya.
Wow.
Startups like Sandy, BitPesa now as a group, Twiga, Lorry Systems, Cellulant, Copia, to name a few, Africa's Talking, they are all receiving humongous amounts of investment. So I think one of the critical things that local investors need to ask themselves is what is it that foreign investors are seeing that we are not seeing? And I think the traditional way, we need to sort of turn the apple cart a little bit. The traditional way of looking at investments doesn't work in the tech space. And people, you'll have different arguments around that, but the fact is that investors who invest in tech, not just in Kenya, but across the world, think about fetching the future. It's not about now. It's about the future. So do you have that patient capital? Do you have that money that will say, listen, I'm going to invest in Sandy, which is, logistics tech startup in Kenya, because I can see where they are going. Now, if Toyota Motor Corporation has invested in Sandy, what is it that they're seeing that we are not seeing? Are we going to continue to put our money in Kitengela plots? Or are we going to start sort of diversifying our investments and taking a little bit more risk for a better return? And I think here the government also should play a part because there is an argument for sovereign fund that would say we have all these co-working spaces, hubs across the country. I think the Ministry of ICT did a great job in trying to get each constituency to have some sort of co-working space hubs. What can we do? That guy in Malindi who is working on agri-tech platform, that lady in Eldama Ravine who is looking at improving yield of maize, what can we do? Because those returns may not necessarily happen today. But if the government is at the forefront of encouraging, and I'm not saying they're not, I'm saying that we need to go one step further and possibly look at a sovereign fund that looks at Kenyan startups. Because if we're not going to do that, and we are not going to sort of incentivize local investors, what is going to happen very quickly is that as these startups mature in Kenya, you're going to quickly realize they are majority owned by foreign investors. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I am saying that we have created the ecosystem, we have created the foundation, and then we are letting others come and, take
it away from us.
Well, I wouldn't say take it away because I would say we are letting others benefit more than we are, because obviously the Kenyans who are the Kenyan techpreneurs who've sort of spent their time and slogged and put in sweat capital, they will obviously benefit. But I think we need to start thinking about a bigger cake remaining in this country.
Yeah, which
And
is
again,
the sovereign fund.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, you know, you started by saying Kenya is sort of the second most important tech ecosystem in Africa.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that we are competing with the big boys. We're competing with Nigeria. It's 180 million people.
Yeah.
We're competing with South Africa. By all intents and purposes, it's a first world country, despite their problems. You know, but we can't rest on our laurels. We can't we seem to have sort of now relaxed a bit. You know, it's like, no, the work starts now.
Yeah.
So lots of opportunity, lots of work that is being done by Kenyans. For example, you know, the CIO East Africa is doing a lot in this space. I don't think we recognize some of the work that Hari and Andrew Karanja, his partner, are doing in sort of the soft stuff, the stories, the events they're creating, you know, the FinTech event, the CIO 100, the InsurTech event, and I hear there's something coming in the EduTech space this year. Those are the things that, you know, make the ecosystem. So I'm really looking forward to the Thursday
event.
The Thursday event, that's when we are going to start looking at the year ahead. What's in store for the year, for this year in the tech space?
And looking at your theme, turning accelerated disruption into opportunities, maybe you can expand more on that. And also, let's look at some of the digital transformation trends that maybe should watch out for, and how do we even in the first place realize them, that they are there, and also how do we even tap into these opportunities out there for us?
So let's look at first the policy and regulatory space and how that aligns to the tech ecosystem. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing or it's a good thing. Regulation and policy is something we must live with. There's going to be a lot more concerted focus on the tech space. The big tech companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, the works have sort of made everyone in the world focus so much on the negative side of technology. We seem to have forgotten the positive side of technology.
True.
You know?
Sort of,
I mean, you know, just a few examples. Facebook, people sort of demonize Facebook. Yes, they need to take care of rather they need to do some housekeeping for sure. But can you imagine a world without Facebook now? You know, that's where we live in. Google, free email. We used to, you know, you take those things for granted, but it sort of opened up a reality that we were never sort of privy to. Amazon Web Services, cloud computing as we know it today, we take it for granted. But if it wasn't for the pioneering work of some of the cloud computing companies, Rackspace, Amazon, you know, you probably not have these startups today. Fact. Why? Because they brought in world-class computing to our level at a fraction of the cost, and you've sort of got the same computing power that a Fortune 500 company would have. You know, companies, startups like Angani, like Nord Africa, these have taken sort of the inspiration from Amazon Web Services, you know, and all that. So the trends, this year what we'll be looking at is more accelerated innovation, more accelerated disruption. But this has to go in tandem with policy. You know, if we don't have the right policies, the analogy for me would be like you have a operating system, whether it's your mobile phone, your tablet, or your desktop, that is corrupted. And yet you want to access all the software that is in your computer or your mobile phone or your tablet. Now, if my iOS on my iPad is not working, how do I access? So that's government. That's government policy. And that's policy, that's legislation. That's regulation. If we are not in tandem, then basically business, startups, established businesses will not operate optimally. They will operate, but they will not operate optimally. So there's going to be a lot of focus this year on the best way to make sure that we have the right policies to regulate for certain, because not everything must be regulated. That is my personal view. But even when you're not regulating, you must form groups and associations to be able to self-regulate to some extent. So you have self-regulation, and at the same time you have regulators who are looking at you, who are orchestrators, as opposed to nyaparaing. There's a huge difference between, you know, gonga, 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 and between, no, you know, I think you could have done this this way, you know, and there will always be bad players in the industry, and those bad players will face the rule of the law. It's as simple as that. So regulation is a very important component as technology grows. Then you have established players who are now realizing, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, the cheese is moving and we are not getting on with it. Yet, the point of where do you protect your current traditional business while at the same time looking to fetch in the future? For example, publishing. You know, I sit on the board of Longhorn Publishers, and we know that publishing is being disrupted by digital technologies, by edtech companies. So how do we ensure that we protect what we currently have and use that to invest into startups? How do we collaborate with edtech startups? Because, look, this is 2020. The days of saying, Tabitha is my competitor, so I must, you know, slash her down to death, you know, those days are gone. First, you've got policymakers and regulators looking at you. The second is simply not good business. My belief is in the concept of frenemy. You're friends and you're enemies at the same time. You are competing and you are also collaborating at the same time. So platforms are the new thinking, but platforms are giving way to ecosystems. What's the difference, in my humble opinion, between a platform and an ecosystem? A platform is owned. For example, Google owns the Google platform, Amazon owns Apple. Ecosystems are about collaboration, are about playing together, and are about sharing. Not you eating biryani and I'm eating ugali. You know? So things are interestingly shifting, and make sure you catch the wave. Otherwise, as we love saying in Nairobi, utawachwa kwa mataa.
All right, so with that shift taking place or disruption, maybe let's have a look at some of the payment solutions that are available.
So, Tabitha, you know, the fintech space has focused a lot on payments. And let me just tell everybody for free, you're not gonna beat Safaricom today or tomorrow. M-Pesa is, as Americans would call it, the 800-pound gorilla in the, in the jungle. You've got all sorts of startups that are playing in this payment space. But my belief is that none of us have even started scratching the surface. We are all sort of jumping and holding the cocktails of M-Pesa. Banks, for example, bankers, I love my friends in the banking sector, but I keep on telling them for free, you people, there's no bank in this country that has a mobile strategy that does not include M-Pesa. How do you anyway, let me stop being controversial beyond that. My point is that I think it's time. It's time to move to the next stage. We've beaten this M-Pesa innovation story to death. We need to move on. What's next? I tell my friends in M-Pesa, M-Pesa should be a global neobank by now. You guys are playing in a small pond. You're the big shark in the small pond eating all the tadpoles. Instead there, go out into the big bad sea and let's see what you're made of. I mean, we have done that M-Pesa story to death. Let's move forward.
Let's move on.
So you've got then of course the banking industry has a PesaLink. PesaLink is great. I think also there's a lot more potential within PesaLink that could actually potentially challenge M-Pesa. There are players like Interswitch, which is a Nigerian, not a startup anymore, because now Visa has invested $200 million into Interswitch, and they are now valued at $1 billion, which is the first African unicorn. You have players like Kenswitch, which seem to sort of be disappearing into the ether. And then of course you have startups like Cellular and other players. I think beyond payments, fintech is bigger, much bigger than payments. You've got players in the wealth management space like Abacus. You've got players that are starting to play in the core banking space, like my startup Kipochi. We are building a core banking open source platform based on a global organization called Mythos, which I serve on the board as an advisor, as a global advisor. Mythos is an open source core banking platform that should be able to assist microfinance institutions, small startups, and the SACCO sector. Get on into the digital age. So exciting stuff that is happening. Last year saw quite an interesting plethora of startups in Kenya being funded and funded well. Sandy, Aza, Twiga, Lorry Systems, Cellular, and Copia, which is an e-commerce platform. CarePay, eHealth, M-Copper, of course, we all know about M-Copper.
Quite a lot,
Yes, Africa's Talking, Copper, and other smaller, some
payment solutions
startups.
available.
So I think we've done well in Kenya, but I don't think we have reached our potential yet. And with a little help from policymakers, from government, from Kenyan investors themselves, they need to start paying more attention into this space.
Yeah.
Otherwise, again, as we say, watachokomata.
Yeah. All right. So you'll be in the panel discussing harnessing a culture for business agility. What business investment opportunities are there for upcoming innovators and also the tech industry in general? Very briefly.
So first, the culture issue.
Yeah.
You know, we're always talking about culture. What's the
Actually,
right?
what's good culture?
I think for me, there's no right or wrong here. There's what suits the company at that time. But there are certain basics.
Yeah.
There are certain basics that we must ensure that organizations are there to, or they will die. Number one, respect for people within that organization. Very important. Number two, the culture of allowing people to experiment. It's not failure.
Yeah.
It's experimenting. If this experiment has failed, let's look at another one. Can we create that appetite for changing the thinking around failure to experimentation?
Yeah.
Because as human beings, I will give you a guarantee, you will fail.
Yeah.
You will fail. The question is, do you take that as a failure, or do you take that as a lesson and an experiment and said, okay, this one didn't work. Now we know why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Can we look at
Another option.
another option?
Yeah.
The other one is not thinking that the reality you live in is the gospel truth or the Quranic truth, whichever religion that you want to discuss, because that is how major businesses found themselves dead. Kodak,
Yeah.
you know, Nokia, you know, these companies, they were ubiquitous. Nokia at one point had 87+% of the world market of mobile phones. Dead today. Why? Kodak. What is interesting about Kodak is that they actually hold the patent for digital cameras. They just simply didn't execute. So the other thing is, when you have a culture, when you create a culture of innovation in an organization, you must allow people to think. You must create a culture of meritocracy as opposed to top-down thinking.
Yeah.
Because I'm the boss, I can never be wrong. I'm sorry, you know. Kwanza millennials and Gen Zs have zero respect for that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we must be able to bring these young, brilliant people into the workspace and allow them to excel, if you may allow me to use that term. Yeah.
So does that translate into what maybe the workforce demands? And if that is the case, then how do companies adopt and maybe implement?
So this workforce issue, how do you, I think the million-dollar question for any business owner or CEO or HR person is, how do you transform workers into owners? And I think it starts from a point of the basics, as I've talked about. You know, how do you treat me as a person? How transparent are you? How willing are you to listen to my views as opposed to just listening to your views? And as much as money is important, it's not everything. All right? Yes, people want to get paid, but people want self-actualization from a deep set wanting to be respected. I think if we create that basic environment, then you know the other things will flow. You must be deliberate about innovation. You must, for example, when we are sitting down and looking at objectives and key results for the organization, what are your objectives as a person? Are they aligned to that organization? And sometimes the answer is no. You know, sometimes my personal objectives are not aligned to that organization. So what would be the best way? We part ways. It's not necessarily a bad thing to part ways. You know, people think it's not about getting fired. It's about knowing yourself. And I know some people will tell me, but jobs are hard to get. You know, but you know, yes, jobs are hard to get, but good people will always find jobs. Or are you looking for a job, or are you looking for a way of life? That's another thing to, you know, another way to look at it.
Yeah, and as we wrap up, maybe what's your take on Kenya's tech space from a financial perspective, and what future prospects should we be looking at?
When you say financial perspective, what do you mean exactly? How are they funded, or are you talking about the financial services sector? The financial services. The fintech space. So, so let me say something first. You know, I saw an interesting video the other day on YouTube. Somebody was saying that every company will be a fintech, you know. So, and I like to say this jokingly in Kenya, everyone and his grandmother wants to be a fintech today. So, the opportunity is obviously immense, because if you just look at just the mobile money sector, did you know that 80% of cash in Kenya is still transacted by, you know, cash, hard cash, despite the success of M-Pesa? You know, I was sitting with a senior bank executive a few months ago, and he was telling me, Ali, you know, our biggest competitor is not M-Pesa. I'm like, okay, who's your biggest competitor? I said, the cash is my biggest competitor. The person who holds money in his wallet or in our wallet is my biggest competitor, because that money doesn't circulate in the financial ecosystem. So we must try and make people transact more within that ecosystem. So, and it's beyond payments. You know, for example, this is something that, you know, I've talked about, and I keep on talking about something as basic as how many basic payments must you pay every month? Water, electricity, service charge, you know, about 5 or 6, telephone, you know. How can you make it? How can my bank make it easier for me to make that payment? Should I be making payments every transaction? You know, there's something we call the customer journey and the friction in the customer journey. Can you reduce that friction to the point that I'm so delighted with my service, with your service, that I don't go anywhere? No, the banks have given that away to M-Pesa. You know, and even M-Pesa is not doing a stellar job on it. And you know, I can tell my friends at M-Pesa for free, and I tell them, you know, this, if you make me do 10 moves on my phone to make one transaction, how the hell are you helping me? How are you? But you know, you Kenyans, you don't want to, before M-Pesa, I said, yeah, before M-Pesa we used to do it in cash, but now you gave us M-Pesa. Now let's move to the next level. You know, customer journey is about a journey. You know, how can you make it frictionless for me? Those are where the opportunities are. And that's where Kipochi intends to play.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ali Hussein, CEO and co-founder, Kipochi. All right, so the event is on Thursday
Thursday morning at Serena Hotel.
At Serena Hotel.
Yes.
Throughout the week from 6th up to next week.
Yes.
All right, so be sure to attend or maybe catch them on their social media platforms. Well, that's all I had prepared for you today. The conversation continues online. Talk to me at Tabitha Muthoni and at Ali H. Kasim on Twitter, and at Metropole TV KE on all our social media platforms. And until next time, be a game changer. Thank you.
Thank you.